What is up, comic fans? Welcome to the Legion of Comics. I'm Mark, and today we're going to be doing something extremely fun. I've been wanting to do this for a while, and especially with the DCU about to get rebooted. This is a conversation that I have had countless times about the DC reboots. You hear it all the time. DC's just going to reboot again. Why should I read that? They reboot all the time. Whenever someone sees an event, oh, they're just going to reboot it. So today, we're going to debunk the DC reboot narrative. Big shout out to Big Time Collectibles for sponsoring the channel and the monthly Legion loot giveaway for the channel members. Be sure to hit that join button down below and become a channel member today. Also, if you need anything cleaned or pressed, hit up our friend Justin over on Instagram. Be sure to let him know you found him via the channel. And if you need anything cleaned or pressed, hit him up. And also, lastly, the local sponsor, my LCS, the Augusta Book Exchange. The link to all of the sponsors are in the description to all of my videos. So DC is going to reboot. This is something that I have had conversations with I don't know how many times. And I feel like most of the time, it's with people that might not necessarily have spent a lot of time reading DC Comics or necessarily comics. A lot of people just see articles or headlines or it gets said, something gets said over and over again, and people just assume it to be true. And then again, maybe we're just talking past each other. So in an effort to not do that, as with a lot of these videos, we're going to start with definitions. If we're not understanding what we're saying to each other, we're not going to be able to draw a proper conclusion. So let's look at the definition of the word reboot itself. According to the Merriam-Webster Dictionary, a reboot is to shut down and restart, typically referring to computers and stuff. But the secondary definition, which is probably going to be the one that's going to be the one we got to work with a little bit more, is to start something anew, to refresh something by making a new start or creating a new version. So let's add something to that. So let's just fill in the blank of something. To start DC anew, to refresh DC by making a new start or creating a new version. To start anew, to stop and then start something different. To completely stop and start something different. Keep that in mind. So we need to bring another definition into this, because this is going to be what I'm going to pretty much argue and point out is what people are calling a reboot is actually an initiative by DC. An act or strategy intended to resolve a difficulty or improve a situation, a fresh approach to something. Now, it's important not to quote my definitions. You have to take it as a whole. So a strategy intended to refresh something to resolve a difficulty. You're having difficult sales numbers, so you come up with a strategy to improve your sales numbers. You have a hard time with readership, so you come up with a strategy to improve readership. Most of these reboots are initiatives, and I will show you what we mean. And how do I gauge the difference of them? How can anybody gauge the difference of them? There has to be something that is a linchpin that we can always look at to be able to say, is this a reboot? Well, let's check this and see. And it all comes down to, in this situation, continuity. Now, what is continuity in comic books? It's the uninterrupted connection, succession, or union. And in this situation, it's of the story. So comics, they have a start, and every month books come out, and it's a timeline of these characters that exists in this shared universe or multiverse. And if that's not broken, if they don't stop continuity, put a fork in it, it's done, and start a brand new continuity, you haven't rebooted anything. Just like with anything, you have events, you have big stuff, and that's what we're going to look at here, because these are what people consider moments where they started continuity over. And we're going to start at the big one. And that first one that they did was way back in April of 1985, and it ran all the way to March of 86. Marv Wolfman and George Perez brought us Crisis on Infinite Earths, arguably the biggest and baddest and best event in comics history. It was a 12-issue mega event that destroyed DC's multiverse, and it slimmed the line down to only one Earth that consisted of multiple characters from all over the pre-existing multiverse. At the time, they wanted to make comics simpler for new readers. It had been going for 40 plus years at that point of storytelling, and it was hard for people to jump in and make sense of all these different characters from different Earths where you had multiples of the same character. So they had this event, this massive crossover event over all their titles, over all their worlds, and they destroyed in continuity the multiverse, where we're back down to only one world where all heroes existed on it, but continuity remained. The timeline was not broken. These character stories were not restarted or anything. It was a Tuesday at the start of the battle. It was a Wednesday at the end of the battle, and we had one Earth. And Thursday, Friday, Saturday kept going. Continuity remained the same. That's the important part, which means this was not by any means a reboot. It's just like if you think about World War II. At the start of it, there were so many people. At the end of it, there was a lot less people, but it's still just the regular timeline. Now, after that, there were some issues, and people tend to look at 0 Hour as the next one. In September 1994, there was a few issues with the continuity because it was still there, where characters had multiple origin stories told and stuff like that. So they did this great story with Parallax, Green Lantern having snapped became Parallax. He kind of was altering stuff and everything. And what they did with this, they just tightened up the continuity because the crisis was such a big event. It left some gaps, some holes, and they used this as a way to just sharpen up their continuity. And it worked. They established a specific time frame that heroes have been around for. They established single origins for characters like, for example, Hawkman, who's had a couple of different origins because different writers and creators work on characters over these decades, and continuity remained still. And we still only had one Earth. And it went like this for a long time till we get to our next big event, which was Infinite Crisis. In this, Jeff Johns wrote a fantastic story, which was a sequel to the original Crisis, which they used to address the tonality of DC Comics, with things getting darker, with villains winning, heroes being compromised, and stuff like that. And they gave us the first glimpse of the potential multiverse returning, but continuity remained the same. Nothing changed after this. It was still just an unbroken timeline. They even did a fun event of 52 issues, one a week, that told the story of what happened directly after this. And it was just a fun time for comics and everything. It was really new. They were kind of working up to what would come next, which would be the game changer, what really set the tone and what really sparked the whole conversation of DC rebooting all the time, which didn't happen until 2011 when Flashpoint came out. Jeff Johns wrote this. Andy Kubert did the art. It was 5 issues. The whole concept of the story is Barry Allen breaks time to go back and save his mother, causing a snowball effect of events that changed the world he lived in. It was unrecognizable. At the end of the story, he breaks time again to try to reset things to how they were. Unfortunately, it did not work. And in this story is what they use as the catalyst to actually reset continuity, to start it over, to completely reboot DC Comics in the era of New 52. And what they did was they completely put a fork in it. It was done. Everything that came before had an end. It all ended there. And we started over. None of these heroes knew each other. All of them had new origins. All of them were young again. They all had to meet each other again. You had 52 titles hit the shelf. It was just wild. It was all issue number 1s. It was a new timeline, a new world. This was an actual reboot. It lasted for 4 years under the branding of New 52, and they kind of put a fork in the New 52 branding with the Convergent storyline. But this is a reboot. Completely started new. Did not keep the continuity at all. And after that, they ran for a while. You had the 52 weeks. You had Countdown to Final Crisis that led into that. But after the fact, we just rocked and rolled with that New 52 for a while. And unfortunately, it wasn't as received well as they wanted it to be over time. It kind of just fell apart. And they went back and they did stuff with DC Rebirth, where they kind of put it into story continuity, and explained it all. But at the time of New 52 happening, it was a completely new continuity. But now, after the fact, it's not. But that's kind of like a red herring. You know, you can go back and retcon whatever you want to, but it was most certainly a reboot. And even Marvel, they did the exact same thing with the Heroes Reborn story. At the time, it was a complete reboot. Stick a fork in the pre-Onslaught universe, and post-Onslaught, we have a completely new one. But it wasn't received well by fans, and they retconned it out with Franklin taking us back to the 616. So both publishers have only really just done one reboot. And then they even went back and got cold feet on and backpedaled. But that's all that they've done. Everything else has been unbroken continuity, just events. And people see these headlines on comics like the Infinite Frontier headlines, or currently the Dawn of DC across the titles. These aren't reboots. These are selling strategies. They're initiatives. They know if we put a common matching theme on books, put out some issue number 1s. It's a great jump on point for readers. Nothing's changed. There's no new timeline. These characters aren't getting new origins. It's just not. I don't even understand where people draw those conclusions from, other than the fact that they're just repeating a narrative that they heard. But it's a great narrative that just spreads so fast and discourages people from reading comics. So I felt it was necessary to do this video in hopes that people would realize that, oh, that doesn't happen all the time. I should get invested in these characters. There's no reason not to. So keep in mind the damaging effect of that narrative. It just kind of bothers me. I don't know why it's not the same thing with Marvel. You've had the most recent Secret Wars, multiversal story, completely collapses worlds and everything. It's literally no different than Crisis. It's literally their Crisis on Infinite Earths. You have the Heroes Reborn, which is their New 52. They kind of did that one first. So it's the same thing, but none of them have ever rebooted their entire universe except that one time. So leave me a comment down below. Let me know what you think of the DC Comics reboots and where you stand on it before the video and after the video. And be sure to check out the current Dawn of DC initiative, because it is some awesome books coming out from over there. Hit that thumbs up on your way out. Subscribe to the channel. Join the Legion. Until next time, as always, I'm Mark, but we are Legion.